It is time. Hi. It is time for my friend here to go to sleep. She wants another story. Can you believe that? She wants another story. She always wants another story, don't you? This is Lilah, and she's a really good friend of mine. She's sleeping over tonight. She loves to sleep in this room because it just is a cozy room. You can notice how cozy it was. And today I promised her to talk to her about the quilt. She has two favorites. Do you have a favorite thing that you like to cozy up in? Well, she does too. So we're going to tell you a story that was written by Patricia Pollacio, who wrote 116 stories. But no, you're not going to hear them all. You're going to hear one, and it's your favorite one. And truth told, I have a lot of trouble figuring out what my favorite Patricia Pollacio story is. This one's called The Keeping Quilt. And of course, I'm Marilyn Price, and I'm reading the story to my friend Lilah. Lilah's last name is Tov, and that means good night. And we're going to wish her that. And everybody who hears a good story usually has good dreams and stories too. Is that right, Lilah? Yes, it is. So I am going to just get you ready. So another thing that Lilah and I like to do, we like to get all dressed up for our storytelling. But let me introduce you to these wonderful quilts that Lilah has custody of for tonight. They belong to my kids as well, and now my grandchildren sometimes cozy down with them too. But I made them for, you remember who I made them for? You want to tell everyone? Mm-hmm. Who did I make them for? Matt. I did make one for Matt and one for Sarah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she loves me when I tell her all about them and this wonderful book, The Keeping Quilt. And of course, you know where we are today. We're on the Mentor Project, telling stories. Would you hold on to this, my friend Lilah, while I show the quilts? Okay. Usually on a warm night like tonight, Lilah only has a quilt for cozying up to, but not necessarily to sleep under. But, she said I could show them both to you. So I thought I'd start with the quilt that I started with my firstborn Matt. Oh my goodness, I was sitting on it. I'm sorry, Lilah. It's even warmer than it was before. Okay, here it goes. This is an alphabet quilt that I embroidered. And I would like to tell you that I designed it all myself, but I didn't. And that's cool because I found someone else who had drawn the design and then I just embroidered it. So let's start with Lilah's first letter, the letter L. And on the letter L, you can see, is an embroidery of a lamb. Mm-hmm. And Lilah's really quite a lamb. So if you were to spell her name out, the next letter on our blanket would be the letter I. Oh, I shouldn't show her this one, right? Because right before you go to bed, you should not have ice cream. Then there's another L. And then, of course, the A is for apple. Yummy, yummy. Way better for you than ice cream, but nowhere near as tasty, right, my friend? And H, our very last letter in the Lilah name, stands for a rather famous poem. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All right, so that's the alphabet. And the real story about that quilt was that I didn't finish it in time for Matt. So Sarah got two. Love that about that. But this one was ready for everybody, and it is much beloved. And if you can see it here, you will see exactly what I mean. It has been loved to pieces, even. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have something that you hold all the time and you just love it to pieces. So these are all different kinds of turtles doing all different kinds of wonderful things. So you know how much I love turtles. So Lilah, my friend, which one would you like to sleep with tonight? Are you thinking? Mm-hmm. She's thinking. What are you thinking about? Turtles. Turtles. Okay. Then can I use the other one while we tell the story? Sure. Thank you. She's so cooperative, don't you think? Now, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to tuck Lilah in. You want to just... She doesn't like this part, but you got it. You got it. Oh, and I want you to look at the book because you're going to watch the book too. Now, the book, we're going to read from this beautiful book. Now, Patricia Pollacio also did all the illustrations. of all of her books, and she wrote 116. That's a lot of wonderful books, and she is still writing. Matter of fact, she just wrote this awesome thing called a prequel. It's not a word you hear very often. A prequel, you want to help me tell what a prequel is? Pre means before, right? So what she did, this story precedes, comes before the Keeping Quilt, and it's called The Blessing Cup. I really resonate with the Blessing Cup. So others, Sticks and Stones, stories about bullying, stories about learning how to read, stories about all different kinds of cultures like Holes in the Sky. There is an endless array of books by Patricia Pollacio. And with any luck at all, I'll get to tell you another one. But for tonight, just to get my pal ready, we are going to give her a babushka. Isn't that a great word? Babushka. What does that mean? It's a scarf. So I'm going to tie it around her head. You'll see how she looks. Whoops. Sorry. Got your nose in there, girl. Okay. Oh, she loves this babushka. And it's what you wore a long time ago. And in the beginning of our story, when you read about, this is a true story, or as true as many of our immigrant families, mine in particular, when they came to this country, they were wearing clothes that they wore then. And what the ladies often wore on their heads were scarves, and they called them babushkas. You want to see how you're looking there? Like, you see? Oh, pretty stunning, huh? Okay, but I need you to put your cute head down like that. Well, no, I promised you could watch the book. Okay, I'm going to get the book for you. All right, so here are some of the things that the Keeping Quilt will do for us. So you might see me pick up this quilt and use it as a cape. You might see me cover the table with it. You might see me do something very, very special, which would be to use it as a chuppah. What is a chuppah? You might say. What a great word, chuppah. That is like a wedding canopy, and people would spread it out over them and get married under it. It's so cool. And it's a symbol of home, being safe. So if you're all ready and you have something, do you have something cozy? Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry, Lilah. Do you want me to give you your bunny? Okay. Lilah sleeps with a bunny. So that's very cool. And the bunny want to listen to the story too? Okay, girlfriend. Here we go. We want to watch the book too. All right, we got a lot to do, don't we? And our friends are waiting for the story. Keeping Quilt by Patricia Pollacio. When my great-grandma Anna came to America, she wore the same black overcoat and big boots she had worn for farm work. But her family weren't dirt farmers anymore. In New York City, her father's work was hauling things on a wagon, and the rest of the family made artificial flowers all day. Everyone was always in a hurry. It was so crowded, not like in back home Russia. But all the same, it was their house, and most of their neighbors were just like them. When Anna went to school, English sounded to her like pebbles dropping into shallow water. Shh, shh, shh. In 6 months, she was speaking English. Her parents almost never learned, so she spoke English for them, too. The only thing she had left for back home Russia were her dress and the babushka that she liked to throw up in the air when she was dancing. And her dress was getting too small. Doesn't that happen to all of us? After her mother had sewn her a new one, she took her old dress and babushka. You want to keep on wearing it? Okay. Then, from a basket of old clothes, she took Uncle Vladimir's shirt, Aunt Havala's nightdress, and an apron of Aunt Natasha's. We will make a quilt to help us always remember home, Anna's mother said. And it was like having the family in back home Russia dance around us at night. And so it was. Anna's mother invited all the neighborhood ladies. They cut out animals and flowers from scraps of clothing. Anna kept the needles threaded and handed them to the ladies as they needed them. The border of the quilt was made of Anna's very own babushka, like yours. On Friday night, Anna's mother would say the prayers that started the Sabbath, Shabbat. Her family ate challah and chicken soup, and the quilt was, what did I say? The tablecloth. Let's set that table. All right. I'll pretend my lap is the table. I'll even put a cup on it, which I meant to give you for your water for later on, okay? Anna grew up and fell in love with great-grandpa Sasha. To show he wanted to be her husband, he gave her a gold coin, a dried flower, and a piece of rock salt, all tied into a linen handkerchief. The gold was for wealth, the flower for love, and the salt was that their lives would always have flavor. She accepted the hanky, and they were engaged. Isn't that nice? Under the wedding chuppah, Anna and Sasha promised each other love and understanding, and after the wedding, the men and women celebrated separately. That's the custom. When my grandma Carly was born, Anna wrapped her daughter in the quilt, just like this. Can I borrow Bunny? Thank you. It's such a great thing to do. Oh, I'm sorry. You want Bunny? Sorry. Okay. Carly was also given a gift of gold, flour, salt, and bread. Gold, so that she would never know poverty. A flour, so she would always know love. Salt, so her life would always have flavor. And bread, so that she would never go hungry. Carly learned to keep the Sabbath, Shabbat, and to cook and clean and do washing. Married you'll be someday, Anna told Carly. And again, the quilt became a wedding chuppah. I'll use the book this time. This time for Carly's wedding to Grandpa George. Men and women celebrated together, but they still did not dance together. In Carly's wedding bouquet was a gold coin, bread, and salt. Carly and George moved to a farm in Michigan, and great-grandma Anna came to live with them. The quilt once again wrapped a little girl, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen called Anna Lady Grandma. I like that. She had grown very old and sick a lot of the time. The quilt kept her legs warm. On Anna's 98th birthday, the cake was a kulich, a rich cake with raisins and candied fruit in it. When great-grandma Anna died, prayers were said to lift her soul to heaven, and my mother, Mary Ellen, was now grown up. When Mary Ellen left home, what do you think she took? What do you think she took? Lilah? You're right. Lilah said she took the quilt with her. When she became a bride, the quilt became her chuppah, wedding canopy. For the first time, friends who were not Jews came to the wedding. My mother wore a suit, but in her bouquet were gold, salt, and bread. The quilt welcomed me, Patricia, into the world, and it was a tablecloth for my first birthday party. At night, I would trace my fingers around the edges of each animal on the quilt before I went to sleep. I told my mother about the animals on the quilt. She told me whose sleeve had made the horse, whose apron had made the chicken, and whose dress had made the flowers that her friends had sewn, and whose babushka went around the edge of the quilt. The quilt was a pretend cape when I was in the bull ring, or sometimes a tent in the steaming Amazon jungle. At my wedding to Enzo Mario, men and women danced together. In my bouquet were gold, bread, and salt, and a sprinkle of wine, so I would always know laughter. 20 years ago, I held Tracy Denise in the quilt for the first time. Someday, she too will leave home, and she will take the quilt with her. I'd like to thank Patricia for this wonderful reminiscent story about keepsakes and good wishes. I also need to thank my friends, right, at the Mentor Project. I'd like to thank Aiden, and I'd like to thank Jimmy, and I'd like to thank Tina and Debbie. But I'd also like to thank all of you for coming to hear this story, The Keeping Quilt, which is, of course, a keeper. And now, if you promise to be really quiet, I'm going to put your cup right over here, so if you get thirsty at night, you can get it, okay? Do you have to do anything before I go to sleep? No. I'm going to take off your babushka. I don't think you need it, just slip it. But maybe Bunny would like it for a blanket of Bunny's own. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a kiss on the top of your head, because I love you and I thank you for coming to my sleepover party. And I thank you for coming to my sleepover party. I'm going to go and turn off the light, so don't you worry about anything. And I will see you next week. You have a good week, a week filled with good.